Yo, what's up? It's Land the Llama with the No Drama Llama podcast, and this is episode 2 of the podcast. Equal means equal, part 2. So, this one should be a very short podcast because we are just discussing the latter half of the movie. So, if you haven't seen the first one, go watch the first one again. But we talked about the movie Equal Means Equal. And I'll try to link that description back in there for you again. But so we talked about how, first off, women, they make less money than men. We talked about how that's a big problem in the for sure, especially if they're doing the same work. Why are they being paid less, And so we explored some reasons for that being maternity leave, which most people actually don't pay for maternity leave, so that's really crossed out. And so all you really get left with is maybe they're not as strong for some jobs, which might be understandable for some jobs, like that are very labor intensive. Maybe you can pull that argument, but for the most part, jobs that require the same amount of talent, same amount of ability, women are being paid less than. Maternity leave again, many don't pay that, which seems kind of ridiculous, especially if you're already paying them less. You would think that they at least maybe cut a portion of their salary so that they can compensate for that, but they don't even compensate, so that's not really the reason. Now, women are not explicitly protected in the Constitution, so that's a problem for women. That's why they've been trying to get the ERA passed. That's a big thing for them. But the Equal Pay Act doesn't protect them because in the Constitution they're not explicitly protected in there. So that's a big problem, I would say, for sure. And a lot of before the 20th century, so 1900s and everything, a lot of women did not get great education. They didn't get really good education because they were just supposed to look pretty. That's all their job was. And so, there was not much that helped them out. They didn't know that they were being discriminated against, a lot of them. And in addition to African Americans and other races, the literacy tests were made so that these people, women and other races, could not vote. And these tests were very ridiculous, where you basically could not get it right. So they would, like in one thing, they'd make you fill out your name on a piece of paper, and you could have one dude going up in there and saying, okay, my name is blah, and then put their middle name, and then they put their last name, and they say, no, that's wrong. And so you had the next dude come up, and they'd ask the same question, and they wouldn't put their middle name, and then they would say, oh, you should have put your middle name. So a lot of ridiculous standards that, to make sure that minorities could not vote. In the late 70s, Catholics opposed abortion and made a movement that swayed Republicans' views of women. Usually, especially recently, the Republicans tie very closely to Catholics, so it makes sense that those two would be on the same page on this topic. Catholics have always really opposed. They just oppose abortion. They haven't really most parts they advocate against it, very strongly, but they have opposed it. So that's what I'll say. Back on the ERA. So the ERA was ratified and re-voted on. I think I told y'all this on the last podcast, but it was re-voted on by 5 states because they had 35, so they're trying to get 3 of them to get it done. And so 3 of them did vote. Like I said, Virginia was the last. And now that that's been happening, Alabama is trying to lead a anti-woman ERA law because they say it's too late to do that. So Alabama's way behind the curve on that, but and we'll just keep it at that. There's a lot of bias in the legal system. I think I talked about this yesterday. There's not much, or in the last podcast, there's not too much like explicit discrimination against gender discrimination in the Constitution, but it's there, just low key in there. So yeah, especially. And like I was talking about the women attacking in self-defense. They should have the right to do that, but in the Constitution and in many legal practices, they don't allow for that. So a lot of women are in there for that, which is ridiculous because they're just trying to protect themselves. Women only have 180 days to call domestic violence against their owners and their employers. So again, the Walmart case, like we talked about yesterday, kind of ridiculous that they didn't. They voted for the company, but yeah. And lastly, some people use the Bible to discriminate against women. They see the Adam and Eve example, and they're like, so women were made out of man, so we're more superior. Is their arguments. There's just a couple other references in there, how women have always been like, in a patriarchal society, they've always been lesser than a man. The man's always been the main person in the household. So, yeah, I think that's about it. This is Llama with the No Drama Llama podcast. Thanks for watching episode 2, Equal Means Equal part 2. See ya.